Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the CHABAD House of DELMAR, together with my co-host Mark Lawrence of Statewide News Service, jbiztechvalley.com, and now weekly columnist for the Jewish Press.
I'm having a fun time doing all three assignments, and in my column in the Jewish Press, I write about how government relates to the Jewish community, or it doesn't, as the case may be. But today, we have a little bit of a different discussion. We're going to talk about Daf Yomi.
Well, this is the Jewish View.
That's
so
right.
Now we're talking
It's
about
all
Judaism.
With Salo and Stan Rosenberg, two Albany residents who have been Daf Yomi participants for many years. So.
You know,
welcome to the Jewish
Salo, first thing that we have to talk about is what is the Daf Yomi? What's the history of it? Just tell us some background so our viewers understand what it is. Most people don't know about Daf Yomi, never even heard about it.
Well, Daf Yomi was established basically to make the Babylonian Talmud familiar to all Jews all over the world, and by having them learn one page a day, a page being two sides of the page, front and back. And there are 2,711 pages and 7.5 years. And if you go through the 7.5 years, you eventually learn something. And it was established in 1923 by the Agudas Yisrael with a proposal by Rabbi Meir Shapiro to establish this cycle that should be universal among Jews, and it was established like that. And it was given a big boost in the 1990s when ArtScroll came along and made it accessible to Jews like me and everybody else to be able to understand what's going on relatively easily, to be able to accomplish a page a day.
Let me explain to the audience, because again, we don't have, it wouldn't be bad to teach a little bit of a Gemara on the show, but you say two sides of a page. I mean, you go through a Harry Potter book. I mean, people knock that off in the 10, 20, whatever page at a time. It's like you have a whole study group for 2 pages. But again, if you know about the Gemara, it's very complicated, and that's really even fast. That's very fast, because if you go into rabbinical schools, which are called yeshivos, they can go on those 2 pages sometimes and spend a whole week and 6 hours a day, and still they'll feel that they're inadequate, because there's commentaries on those commentaries on those commentaries, and it really isn't an easy learning. I always say that I started learning, I learn with everybody, and this person was a very, very intelligent professor, and he had a little bit of Jewish background from Hebrew school, and we started learning even an easier page of the Gemara, and he says, this is something I've never even, it's just a different kind of learning of every line and every word. Well, you analyze it.
Explain Gemara and how that relates to Daf Yomi.
You want to explain it, Sal?
Well,
you're the guest.
Because you're saying Gemara and more audience.
Okay, the Gemara, usually when people refer to the Gemara these days, they refer to the Mishnah, which is the codification of the oral Jewish law, which, because of the desperation of certain circumstances, was written down and codified and made available in written form. This was, and what remained oral was a discussion of the students afterwards for the next few hundred years, and that remained oral. But then that became under pressure when the Jewish community in Babylon came under pressure that it wasn't able to sustain this form of learning, and so then they wrote down they wrote it all down as a written document, and they wrote it down as a dialogue, as a dialectic, in order to force people to think of the Oral Torah as an Oral Torah, and they were able to and to think of it as a dialectical discussion among many, many different people. And that's the way it's given to you, and really you're basically trying to understand the discussion between different people and understand their logic and understand their framework of thinking about a specific subject, and not only their framework, but their teacher's framework and their teacher's framework, and this is all given to you. And this is what all this put together. It was actually done over a period of 50 years. They wrote it down first, and they studied in the academy and banged it around for 25 years, rewrote it, and then banged it around again for another 25 years.
So the Gemara is?
The Gemara really is the commentary on the Mishnah, strictly speaking.
And the Mishnah is? The
Mishnah is the codified version of the oral, codification of the traditions of the I would say the Mishnah is a codification of the development of Jewish law, but who said what and why and what they said, and the Gemara is really a discussion of that codification. That was done over the period of a few hundred years.
And the Gemara, and then you mentioned Daf Yomi in the context of Gemara.
Daf Yomi is basically, we take the Babylonian Talmud, which is basically a combination of the Mishnah and the Gemara, and the discussion that later on became the Gemara that was integrated into the book that we call the Gemara. We call it all. The combined book is called the Gemara, and this is what we study one page at a time.
I just want to say there's 2,700 folios. That doesn't mean pages. That means two sides of a page.
Sides of the page, correct.
And if you do one a day, you can simple math, but it does take a 7-year cycle. And one of the reasons it was instituted is because, of course, they learned the Talmud and the Gemara in the yeshivas, but so to speak, they learn, maybe we can say something you get your teeth into, like money matters, because there is a lot of this argumentation. Hey, you owe me $10. No, I only owe you $5. Well, and you can get into it. But the Talmud takes in, and if we put it on the table, if you can see, you would take up practically this whole table, because there's so many commentaries in it also. But certain subjects, they contain all subjects. So there are a few tractates that deal with sacrifices. And as I said before, you have young students that are learning 6 hours a day, even more, and they picked out maybe we could say the juiciest subjects of the Talmud, like the money matters or the holidays. Everybody's interested in the Sabbath, for example, the Shabbos or the holidays. Everybody has Passover. How do we celebrate Passover? But if you say, well, we're going to learn every day about a sacrifice, those tractates weren't learned. So in 2023, that, it's just like unfortunately, like in college today, people take courses, they're learning the whole day, and then you ask them after college, did you read a book this year? I learned one, wait a minute, you're a college person, you read how many books while you were graduating? A little bit that affects the yeshiva students also. You do get married, you do go into business, takes up a lot of time raising a family and doing a business, and then the learning kind of peters off. So therefore, as Rabbi, the Malbim Dad thought that it was an important thing. If you're disciplined, then you do it. Listen, every day, this is your assignment. Not like, I'll get to it when I get to it, it's a good idea, I'll come when I come. You get people who talk that way and they never come. This way, here's a regimen every day, and people are regimented, and if they hold by something, then they will do it. So it takes.
And locally in Albany, you do it in the morning.
We do it 5:55 in the morning. On weekday mornings at Abraham and Jacob, 380 Whitehall Road, and it goes
in the afternoon.
And on Saturday in the afternoon, roughly about an hour and a half, 2 hours before Mincha.
At Shomrei Torah.
At Shomrei Torah. And then Sunday morning, Rabbi Simon gives right after Shacharis. Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you, Salo, I don't want to bring Stan in here to this, but why did you begin learning the Daf Yomi, and when did you begin?
I began learning Daf Yomi consistently when I got married. And I came up to Albany, and Albany did not have the multiple shiurim that were available in New York. And I could go listen to this one and listen to that one and listen to different rabbis about different subjects and everything else. And if I was going to continue learning, I had to do something consistent. And I went to Daf Yomi. That's why I went to Daf Yomi. And what I found in Daf Yomi was extraordinary, because what I found was people who had never learned at all, who had founded Daf Yomi groups, and Bernie Saul, for one, and never gone to yeshiva or whatever, and he would learn every morning, and their dedication and their commitment to it overwhelmed me and really kept me going.
And when did you begin this? When
I got married.
How many years ago?
1992.
92.
Yeah.
So it's been about 26 years. 24 years.
That's a nice segue for Stan, and bring him into the conversation, because Stan, you're not a yeshiva student, and you come consistently, or you learned through the whole entire Talmud, which is really an incredible feat. Why did you get into it, and what do you see to get out of it that you learn every day?
Well, the way I really got motivated with Salo, he would start handing out pamphlets, the free pamphlets, and I said, I got a free gift. Well, I gotta, I can't just take it and not do anything. So I started, following it along. And honestly, I can't get up, at 6 o'clock in the morning for the Daf Yomi, so I try to make it for Saturday and Sunday. And if I have any questions, Salo is incredible. He explains things that for me are so difficult, but he makes it understandable. So I really appreciate that. And another resource I found, Salo mentioned Art Scroll, but over the years, they now have so many resources. I have 2 different oral shiurim that I can access.
Shiur means class.
Yeah, so I can listen to the daf, by rabbis, and I have 2 that I generally stay with, but I know there are more.
Locally here?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. One is through the OU, Orthodox Union, and then one is a new...
And that's on a video or what?
I have it as an audio, but there are numerous rabbis.
So they send you these DVDs?
No, actually, you go right to the website and find where it says Daf Yomi. It'll link you into the day's daf, and you click, and there you go. You hear it. And then other things that have really helped me is the Daf Yomi Advancement Forum, where they have an incredible amount of written material.
Now you finished the 7-year?
Yeah.
7.5 years?
7.5.
And what did you feel when you completed that?
I mean, such elation. When I saw people studying the daf here in Albany, I was in awe. I said, these people are scholars. What are they talking about? I don't understand. But to suddenly, get the instruction one-on-one, getting the extra help by the audio, and then getting these written materials also from the internet, where I could read. You get backgrounds on the daf, explanation of terms, and between all of that, I managed to hang in there.
And do you have? Were you given a quiz? Did Salo?
They actually on the daf.
I do mark attendance over here for Stan, so he knows that.
Well, these resources from the Daf Yomi Advancement Forum actually do have daily quizzes. I'm not bold enough to try to do that, but you could actually take
another 7.5 years?
Oh yes, I'm in my next cycle, and I think you asked what I got out of it. It was just incredible. I love history and I love anthropology. So just going through the Talmud, seeing what daily life was like 2,000 years ago, it really wasn't a whole lot different from our life. Like on Shabbat.
People are the same.
Yeah. For Shabbat, I learned that women like to go out with jewelry, getting all dressed up. And just reading about, some of the snacks they had, which I wouldn't like, but you got to see what, some of their daily regimen was, like moldy bread and vinegar, I think was one of the top
Not
ones.
for today. Today's chocolate ice cream. But Stan, I wanted to say also that it's small. We have a nice group. As Sal is very incredible that he keeps it up every day, like 6 in the morning. They have a study group. But
there are 3 or 4 other people at least.
Yeah,
I know. There's a handful of people.
When you miss a day, you're not the leader. There's no leader.
No,
so if you miss a day, who continues?
Josh Wildman is giving classes, and sometimes they'll learn themselves. We used to learn from the tape. And the one that changed that, not that we stopped learning from the tape, was the Torah tapes, which has a shiur for every day by first class, Magidei shiur, first class people who can explain the daf very clearly. But the one who broke that was Hananya Rosenblum. Hananya Rosenblum, he heard Rabbi Franz speak at, who was his Rebbe in Baltimore Yeshiva where he went to and we got smicha from, and he heard him speak and he spoke about the importance of Daf Yomi, so he decided to give the Daf Yomi shiur. This was at the, I think the 11th cycle, you know, and he decided to give Daf Yomi shiur, and he gave it till he moved to, and so that everybody got spoiled by having a person instead of a tape, and from that time on we really had people.
So who does it when you're not there?
Josh Wildman does it, you know, yeah.
Okay.
Other people.
So you're not, you don't feel so guilty.
The Torah belongs to the Jewish people.
No, but you don't feel so guilty when you're not there.
I make sure that it's covered. I make sure that it's covered, yeah.
But you don't call yourself the leader of the group.
I'm not the leader of the group.
Okay.
I'm a participant. In other words, if there were other leaders, I would be there also, okay? If there were other, when Rabbi Hananya Rosenberg gave the shiur, I was there all the time. When I first started, there was a Rabbi Friedman who gave the shiur, I was there. I'm a participant. I'm not a giver of a shiur.
And there was Joe Seidel, right?
Joe Seidel used to participate. Joe Seidel started the group. Right, but then that's what I was told. But when I came, he was very sick. His wife used to bring him every day to the Daf Yomi, and he would sit there just off-centered, and I couldn't understand why this guy was sitting off-centered. And I said to him, why don't you come and sit with us? He says, no, I can't understand anymore. And his mind would, but he knew that he was coming, and he came every day.
But you know, I want to take it from the local, which is incredible because in Albany there's a local idea, but these are classes and people are learning throughout the entire United States and the world. And just to give you some semblance, because, you know, Stan, you start in the middle of the cycle, there is the beginning of the cycle. Well, you know, when you learn something, fine. But at the end of the cycle, which was in September, the last cycle, September 2012, we're kind of in the middle of that 7-year cycle. They had a big, incredible, if you say graduation party, in the Hebrew it's called a siyum, and I went with a few people. Locally
where?
To the siyum. To MetLife Stadium. MetLife Stadium, you can't believe it. They had 90,000. Usually in a football game there's 70, 80,000, but they had the whole field covered also. So the 90,000 people were all learning Torah together.
All men.
All men, for the most. No, there was a section on top for women. There were some women, but for the most part they were men. And they said people know the Kaddish. To say Kaddish, you know, you say with a minyan with 10 people, or a night shul is 100 people, a few hundred people. There's someone say the Kaddish with 90,000 people answering. Actually, it just says that since the times of Moses, there probably wasn't such a group of people, you know, of people, Torah scholars learning together. So I just want to bring out, it's just not just a local, which is incredible that you hold it up in a city like Albany, but you know, you're really joining in together with a worldwide learning session. And they're all learning the same page, you know, hundreds of thousands of people, if you can think about that, you know, in the same day. So that's really an incredible idea for Judaism and Torah scholarship.
Speaking of technology, the last 2 siyums we actually could watch here locally. We were getting the live feed, the live stream, and it was incredible. You could see the picture. It was the full stadium, and it just, I just,
You talk about
my mouth was open.
You were just imagining the traffic jam getting out of here.
Yeah. So that's why I'm glad we watched
but, you know,
it from
Salo
here.
mentioned, and you did too also, you know, we're blessed really with technology today. And, you know, Lubavitch Rebbe always felt that, you know, people get caught up and you hear the kids are too much on Facebook and they don't text and they don't talk to each other. So obviously there's a lot of issues that maybe is not so good in the technology. But here's the positive idea of technology. First of all, I mean, again, it would be behooving, I don't know if people could really fathom the idea where, first of all, the Talmud is written in Aramaic. So Hebrew's hard enough for an English speaker. Now you have to learn Aramaic, another language. There's no punctuation there. It's, like I said, it's very difficult. It's not like reading a Harry Potter book for a few pages. Very, very difficult, and every word and every line is something there's commentaries on it. And the Art Scroll has, you know, has commentaries, made it very accessible for people to learn. And like you say, now they have the tapes and CDs and iPhones, and they obviously never had that, obviously even 10, 20, 30 years ago, where a person, like say, if you do miss, Mark was saying, if you do miss, you can't make it that day, so you could always just pick up your device and listen to it. And people do learn it on the subways in New York and as they drive. So that's using technology for a very positive way.
I also have to thank Rabbi Steinsaltz in his latest Talmud editions. He actually has the words with vowels, so you can actually pronounce them. Because when I try to read along in the original text without vowels, I'm totally lost. I just can't make anything. But there, you could actually say the words as they were written in the Talmud.
See, this is just an important point, what Stan is saying, that's we brought him out, that you don't, say, oh, Talmud, I'm not a rabbi, I never learned these texts. That, Stan's a great guy, but you're not a rabbi, and you're not a yeshiva student, and you keep up Daf Yomi. There's so many number ones, if you want, it's very interesting, number one, and it is so accessible. There's classes, there's pictures of different things that they're talking about, punctuation, so that's an important point.
I would
Go
just
ahead.
like to make one point, and as you mentioned that Albany, you mentioned about Albany being a small town and that we have such a thing. I don't think Rashi, I don't know where Rashi lived, in Troy or wherever he lived. I don't think
Troy up the block?
No, not that, no, in France, whatever.
All right,
the Franco-German border. I don't know if his town was much bigger than that. We have, 20,000 Jews here?
Yes.
What we're missing is participants. If more Jews participated, then Albany would be on the map also. Just like Rashi put the map, put his
Troy
town,
on the map.
Troy on the map. So it's important to understand what we need is more participants, and Albany will be on the map.
That's it, just for people, and of course, we're not just saying how great Albany is or these Salo and Stan are, but we, obviously they want more participants, as Salo's just been telling us. But again, if you can't make it, the 6 in the morning is a little difficult for some people. But in any case, they have actually these, you can get a daf on CD-ROM, as we're saying, so technology is available for every person. English, Hebrew, I know like Israelis, learning it. I don't know how many people speak Yiddish today.
Stan introduced me to OU Radio and Rabbi Elephant, and it's a very good way of, it's a very smooth way of reading. He speaks in English, and he translates very smoothly, and you get a feel for how the page is flowing, what the logic of it is.
You get some old people that they say, they spoke in Yiddish, I don't speak Yiddish. They're old timers, and it's just very inaccessible. And that's why we just want to bring out that if a person wants to, not only their classes, but there's all kinds of books that make it accessible with so many CDs or over, iPhone, so every person can start learning.
I'm curious why these recorded shiurim are in English, Hebrew, Yiddish, and French. Why not Spanish and why is it
We want to innovate in Spanish, maybe.
No, because the Rebbe was from learned at the Sorbonne, and I don't know what the French connection is, so to speak.
Well, the only thing I want to say, it's a tribute to America that the Art Scroll was the first modern translation, widespread translation of the Talmud, and was made available to Jews all over them. It's a major tribute to the United States of America. They tried to do something similar to this in Germany, and it was interrupted, obviously. But what mainly interrupted it, or mainly made it difficult, was that they didn't have a sense of freedom of religion. So basically, if you would talk about something, there was a tremendous interest in this on the part of non-Jews, okay, and on the part of people who were against Jews and who didn't like Jews, okay, and they would constantly criticize it. So there was a tremendous amount of energy just spent in arguing with people back in America. They believe in freedom of religion, and they let people just figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, but what's the French component as opposed to Spanish? I know that
France has about 400,000 Jews. France is a major Jewish country. And that was even a German, actually. Now there is a German version of the Art Scroll. I saw it someplace.
Okay, yeah, because they don't have German on here, and I guess the Yiddish.
I don't think they translated the entire Talmud in German. I think there's one There's one that was, I'm not sure about
Things
that.
are, you know, like Mark, but also things are evolving. That's what we're saying. The Art Scroll is not that many years old. We're on a cusp of new innovations. Like they're putting things on CD. It's not like, oh, this is what they did for the last 50 years.
Right.
These are brand new translations every time. So Spanish, you're asking about Spanish. So I'm sure if we come back in a year or two, you'd say, listen, that there's some kind of translation.
We're at the beginning of the
Spanish.
beginning. We're not even
Okay.
at the beginning. Okay,
Alright.
we're at the beginning of the beginning.
So who do I say that we should have a Spanish translation? Who do I tell?
Well, you got to learn Spanish, and you'll be the
If you
first
want to
one.
give a donation, I'm sure they'll do it also.
Okay, well, this is quite fascinating because I know that there are a lot of people who don't have any idea that they can come learn, especially here in Albany. And, that people down in New York City, they believe, anything out of the 5 boroughs is a vast wasteland of Jewish life and culture, and I'm really happy that, Albany has a Jewish life and culture, and I wanted to point that out even more. That's sort of why I created my website, jbiztechvalley.com, is to show what a variety of types of Judaism we have here. So, yes, Dan.
Before we run out of time, I just had to mention this, just an incredible coincidence. Last summer, my daughter had a trip to Poland for 1 week, and one of the places she visited was Rabbi Meir Shapiro's yeshiva,
Wow.
which has been restored, and I actually saw pictures of it. So I'm studying the Daf Yomi that was started by Meir Shapiro, and she was actually in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shapiro. It just boggles the mind that you could just
It's
come
a
in
living
full
history of
circle.
Judaism.
Stan, what's your takeaway out of the 7 years, 7.5 years of learning the Daf Yomi? Was there one thing in particular that you said, wow, and the light bulb went off, or, oh, this is something I could certainly carry through the rest of my life, or, what was...
Well, as I've become, more devout, one of the tractates talking about brachas and how the different prayers,
Translated blessings, just
Yeah.
translate for
Yeah, okay.
people.
just to see how it all began and how they debated which prayers they were going to have in, and they actually described a prayer service, the minyan like we have, and they had a leader like we have, a shaliach. I just
I think
blew
that's an
me
important
away.
point, because I know when people do Judaism, well, that's the way it is. I says, well, if you would learn just one page of the Talmud, it's a debate. It's not just, here, this is it, period, end.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, let's discuss it. I mean, yes, there are decisions and there are laws, but it's not just equivocal in that, that people just don't take it literally handed. Jewish people are thinkers, and they're debaters.
I just want to make one point.
Go ahead.
And this has to do with Stan.
Yeah.
Okay, I met Stan was giving we were learning kudshim, which has to do with sacrifices. Right
Good.
now, we're in a period of time during which the temple was destroyed. Okay, Shivas B'Tammuz, Jerusalem, last Shabbos, so to speak, Jerusalem was surrounded, and in Shabbos, 2 or 3 weeks since, the base Mikdash was burnt. The fire was put on fire. So he was learning kudshim, and when you learn kudshim, the base Mikdash is very alive. It exists as a real entity. There were people thinking and talking and trying to get things done, and how they got things done, and how they discussed this and everything else. He was also learning Josephus at the same time, okay, in another class in Jewish history, and he suddenly realized, Josephus talked about the destruction of the temple, and he suddenly realized, whoa, we've just lost all this that we're learning about today. We really lost it. And you see it for real. You see it sometimes on Passover also. If you learn Pesachim at the same time, the Gemara on Passover, at the same time that Passover is coming, you get an incredible sense of, you realize about the Passover sacrifice. You realize about hundreds of things that when you hit the Seder, totally makes sense to you. You don't realize the Seder is a sacrificial meal that's being eaten and everything else.
Just even for the future, you say this is the period of time when we're mourning for the temple. But on the other hand, that's why the Lubavitch Rebbe always emphasized, learn about the temple, exactly what you're saying, and learning about for the future. Look forward to what we will get. We're always promised that there will be a third temple, And this way gets everybody excited, like you're saying, once you learn about it, not saying, okay, Third Temple, but what's really happening there, or what would be happening, and that's get people excited and it'll come into fruition.
Okay.
But that's it. Listen, you know, we have 7 years to learn the Talmud. Maybe we should be here for 7 years, but we only have a half hour on our show. And I want to thank you, and really for everything both of you do for the Jewish community in the Albany, in the Capital District, of being the spinal, you know, the backbone of the Daf Yomi.
The beginners, the first of many.
All right, so this is, we're only in the cusp. That's why we're saying it should only grow. That's the biggest blessing.
I'll see you on Sunday.
Okay.
Thank you very much.